Hello everyone, my name is Chris McElderry. I am a board certified clinical specialist in neurologic physical therapy. I went to Midwestern University and graduated, went to Northern Arizona University for my neurologic residency with Honor Health. I've worked in all settings in acute care, inpatient rehab, and now in the last 7 to 8 years of my practice have been in outpatient neurologic therapy. So I've had the unique opportunity to work with the BalanceTutor. The unique part is that nearly my entire caseload consists of those with neurologic injuries. I've also presented a case report at CSM that highlights the abilities to improve one's balance utilizing the unique features of the BalanceTutor. The primary goal for everyone who suffered a stroke is to be able to walk again, with the ultimate goal of walking independently. The BalanceTutor allows just that. We all lose our balance, but the ability to catch oneself when a loss of balance occurs is the difference maker. The unique component of this treadmill is that it offers a 4-way reactive perturbation component to it. So the BalanceTutor utilizes key components of motor learning, which are use-dependent or task-specific training and sensory-motor adaptation. So now we're talking about using the motor cortex, the spinal cord, and utilizing the use of the cerebellum to correct predictive responses, matching them afterward with a perturbation, and then the correct response, which will then help improve stepping reactions, improve confidence, and reduce the risk for falls. The natural progression of a balance reaction begins at the ankles. What happens is, with a small perturbation, there's a use of the flexors, either the dorsiflexors in the front of the leg or the plantar flexors behind the leg. As the perturbation becomes larger, there's now a use of the hip strategy and then the trunk strategy. And that's the sequential progression there. So it's ankles, hips, and the trunk. And beyond that, if the perturbation is large enough, we're going to utilize a stepping strategy to help catch ourselves. All right, so what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you step in here and put this on just like a jacket. Perfect. Just going to fasten the middle carabiner. Super easy. These belt loops, or these leg loops, are going to come up around the waist. Snap into place. One there. All right, easy as that. And we're locked in. Okay. Let's twist it. There we go. All right. We're gonna put this on, snap it into place, cinch that up. Make sure this is nice and loose so it's not giving any feedback. Feed that through. And we're ready to rock. All right. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you stand there just like you normally would. I don't want you to think about anything. I want you to react as you see fit, okay? All right. I'm going to start off giving you a small little nudge in any direction, so you won't be able to anticipate it. But the unique feature of this treadmill is that I can move you back and forth. The platform will move to the sides, or I can move the belt forward and backward to simulate slips or trips, okay? Okay. All right. All right, so I'm going to give you a little nudge here. Good. And right now I have your base of support, just your natural stance, which is perfect. Good. Now I'm going to give you a nudge that simulates a slip or a trip. Okay. There's your slip backward. Just like the old cartoon with the banana peel. And there's your trip forward. What I like to do is, if we're having trouble with one direction, I like to work on it, blocked practice, working on a stepping reaction forward, particularly if they have Parkinson's and they have interpulsion and festination forward. We can work on that quick stepping reaction to elicit a larger response and improve one's ability to then shift the center of mass back under them by getting that foot out further. And what I mean by that is that if we're starting to festinate and freeze and we can't produce that output, the trunk gets going forward and the feet get left behind. Well, what we can do on this treadmill is we can elicit a stepping response and take that large step, that amplitude, and now the trunk remains within that base of support once more. So what I want you to do here, Bo, is I want you to bring your feet now and narrow your base of support. Now I'm going to start to give you some nudges side to side or some medial lateral perturbations, and that's really going to work more on your trunk and postural responses, utilizing your hip strategies. Oh, and you saw that right there. You had to take that step to correct yourself. So if somebody has a loss of balance in one of those directions, there's two ways that they elicit a stepping response. They either have that side step like Bo did, or they'll cross over. And that's the unique feature that you can replicate and train on this treadmill. Good, good. Now we're going to simulate that slipper trip. Once again, retropulsion or feeling of falling backward is something that people with neurologic conditions battle. Specifically, I'll reference Parkinson's. And so what happens is we have this abnormal sense of where we are in the sensory input, and we start to fall back, and we need to elicit a protective stepping strategy. And that's going to be the difference maker between somebody staying upright and falling. So we're going to elicit that back stepping strategy to work on that. And what's great is that I can grade that. So you did a pretty good job there of eliciting that. I'm going to make it even larger now. There we go. And that's the amplitude that we're looking for right there. With Parkinson's, you want to elicit bigger movements and the quality to be there and that motor output. So that's the amplitude we're looking for. And then your base of support in your trunk stays right in between your feet. So that's perfect. So Bo, now that you've experienced these standing perturbations, side to side, forward and backward, we're going to now integrate a more functional component, which is walking. So after a stroke or a brain injury, a spinal cord injury, I mentioned before that walking is one of the key things and components that people want to be able to do again independently. And so this is what we can do. We can integrate the treadmill component to the perturbation component that this BalanceTutor has to offer. What I like to cue somebody is, I want you to walk at your normal, comfortable pace, and if it needs to be a little faster, let me know, or if it needs to be slower, let me know, okay? Pretty good? Good. And what's great is I have this remote here, so I can be hands-on and look at different angles of his gait and be able to control the response here. So if it needs to be a little bit faster, I can just hit that plus button, and now we've got him rolling a little bit faster. And now I'm going to grade those responses accordingly. Okay, Bo, so what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to elicit a crossover stepping strategy to make you work on your reactive balance, all right? There we go. There's the crossover. So you can target the different stepping strategies during stance phase. So for example, we're going to say that his weaker side or his hemiparetic side is going to be that right side, that right leg right here as we're coming through. Well, when he's in stance, he might lose balance on that side more often than you would on the stronger side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have him take a crossover step to correct with his left. And you'll get to see that here. There it is. And that's the difference maker between somebody staying upright and avoiding a fall, or somebody being on the ground. And that's the unique feature of this treadmill. And now we're going to do it to the other side. And there it is right there. We can also replicate those slips or trips in a more functional manner. So you're walking along and then all of a sudden when you're outside, you hit a little piece of ice or a little slick water. Whoa! And you caught yourself. That's great. And all doing so within the safety of the harness. And that's the key, is that you can replicate and practice this on a larger mass scale. And as a clinician, I feel a lot more comfortable having my patient in a harness and being safe. And then I can objectively quantify that data and work on it and say, hey, bro, you went from, we're at level 10 and now we're all the way up to level 20 and your stepping reactions are larger and they're quicker. And that's the key to me. And knowing that he's safe the whole time. And now I can add in a quick slip. Gotta make that bigger. Those ones always have to be bigger. We can add in a quick slip. And he has to make an adjustment to his postural responses and trunk righting reactions as well. And that's that reflexive nature and response that, if I don't tell him, you can see that lurch of the trunk there and how he has to catch himself. That's what we want to see. Let's go back to our scenario where Bo has weakness on his right leg and he's not taking a large enough step, let's say, on his right leg, on his right side. So what we can do is we can come around here and we can isolate that. As that right leg begins to trail behind, I can hit him with a quick step. And that just elicited a huge hip flexor response and a larger step forward. We'll see that again. As we trail, boom, and a larger step with the right. So if we want to work on eliciting hip flexor recruitment, and we want to elicit a larger step length, whether it's due to stroke, Parkinson's, MS, whatever it may be, we often see these common gait abnormalities with these patients. This is the type of training that you can do in that repetitive, use-dependent or task-specific training on a mass scale. If he has to cross and look at traffic, we can add in head turns. So go ahead, Bo, add in a couple head turns for me. Good. That's going to light up and excite that vestibular system. And then you have to scan with your eyes as well. So we're getting ocular motor work. All of this is important with post-concussion rehab. We're talking about people with MS. This type of activity, this type of training here can be used with all different populations. And if you think about just the general geriatric population, this is, I would say, one of, if not one of the most functional activities that you do with somebody. As we get older, what do we do typically? Oh, we go to the grocery store. That's one of our main modes of activities. Well, this is what we're doing. We're carrying our groceries right here. And we're going to be safe doing it, knowing that we can catch ourselves. This is a fun activity that I like to do with people with Parkinson's. When we talk about Parkinson's, we talk about initiation of movement. There's often what we call motor degradation that has to do with stopping and starting and the ability to then produce the amplitude of movement when you're in a static position. So there's going to be some adjustments here that Bo's going to have to make based on what I tell him. So I'm going to have you, Bo, when I say a color, I'll say orange, for example. You're going to take your right foot first. You're going to hit that furthest target up there, orange. Good. And then you're going to have to drop back and slow down your speed. And you're going to hit that back one, orange one, with your left foot. So while we're doing this, this is kind of the unique feature of the BalanceTutor is I'm going to give you either a forward trip or a backward slip, or sorry, a nudge in either direction. And what that's going to do is that's going to elicit a larger stepping response and increase the amplitude of movement. So, all right, let's try this out. Purple. He's going to step there and have to step there. What's great is now he has to scan. Did you see that what he had to do with his head right there? Let's try that one more time. Look at his head for a second. Purple. Good.
He excites semicircular canals. He has to look with his vision side to side and scan. Those are all things that you have to do functionally when you're walking over ground. So the transference of the task from this to overground walking and being able to walk and turn your head and scan, and then your ability to sidestep and catch yourself, all of this is done while safely in the harness, and I get to be right here and control everything. So, let's go with that green one here. He has to make a quick adjustment, and then he has to speed up his walking. And now he has to slow down. So I'm going to go orange. He's going to reach up, and then he has to slow down. Good. And now we're going to go purple. Good. And he has to sustain the movement throughout, which is challenging to do at a forced or a fixed pace. So that's an advantage to being able to add in some creativity with the features that the BalanceTutor has to offer. Okay, so whenever you're doing an evaluation and we're talking about integrating perturbations, the BalanceTutor offers a four-way perturbation platform. And what we can do is integrate that, use that acceleration in all different directions to target the vestibular system. So if you do a sensory organization testing and the eyes are closed and you're on a compliant surface, so you're taking away somatosensory feedback from the feet, you're taking away your vision, which we know vision is the main system of balance. Well, now we're left with just that inner ear. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have Bo step up here on the phone. So we're going to distort the sensory information from the feet. We're going to have him close his eyes. And now I get to provide a stimulus or an external perturbation in any direction to work on his ankle strategies, his hip strategies, his postural control. And watch. Good. This is a unique feature that the BalanceTutor provides, is the ability to go behind, grade on the screen. Right now he's at about a 10 or an 11 on that stimulus. Okay, we want to get to that point where he almost steps off. We want to utilize the most out of his ankle strategies. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go up 2 points, and we're going to see if he can sustain that one more time. Good. Oh, and you can see right there, those dorsiflexors kick in, those toes come up, and man, we're right on the cusp of getting him to take a reactive step. But that's the type of training and the type of intensity that you want to see, and the type of motion that you're going to get in feedback from your inner ear system. We're going to hit him figuratively. We're going to provide a perturbation now, and we're going to work on those gastroc muscles too, and those ankles. And see right there, that stimulus right there, that was big enough to elicit a stepping strategy. So the unique feature, again, with the BalanceTutor is, if I don't want that, I can go back and grade that down. So I can say, okay, now this should be his limit or his threshold. Oh, so close. We're going to try that one more time. Because I want him right on the edge or right on the cusp where it's challenging, but yet he's able to use his ankle strategies before he utilizes a stepping strategy. Right there, perfect. And with that motion and that excursion, he's getting that feedback from the inner ear as well. So we're not only working on spatial orientation and postural control, good, but we're also working on ankle strategies as well. So that's, again, one of the unique features of the BalanceTutor is I get to grade that on an objective scale. I can't do that anywhere else. In the clinic, I've tried in the past having somebody on the phone taking bands or providing nudges. I don't know how much to grade. I don't know if that's enough, if that's too much, or if I can go more. So what do I get to do? Well, I get to come behind and I get to say, okay, he's at a 10. I can progress to an 11. So in the clinic, you're able to grade that response at the highest possible level that his body can take with use of those ankle strategies. All right, I love to integrate functional tasks into rehab because obviously that's what's salient, that's what transfers to real life. So what do people do when they're walking inside their home or out and about? Well, they're usually holding a glass of water. I don't recommend water around a piece of equipment that's electrical, but we're going to simulate that in a different way. So I'm going to have Bo hold on to that. And now his focus is taken away from the task of walking, and his focus is on maintaining that balance with that water glass. So now we have a dual task, and he has to set shift in his mind. Okay, now we have to focus away from the walking, and now we have to focus on making sure that the water, or whatever it may be, kind of looks like an ice cream cone, doesn't spill. And here's the kicker. We're going to add in a sudden, unexpected response. So let's say he's walking around, he's thinking about, oh, I got to make sure that ice cream cone, but then he misses a step on the curb and he slips or he trips. That's what we're going to implement right now. Let's see if he can keep it. Good, good. Awesome. And this is the unique feature that the BalanceTutor offers. It offers that four-way reactive perturbation. And I just elicited a crossover step there. Can he maintain his balance while his focus isn't necessarily maintained on his legs? Good. We'll do a crossover step here. Nice, nice job. And so the mind has to set shift between the response of the sensory input that's coming up from the treadmill and that external perturbation, between that and the focus on that cone. Good. The great unique feature about this BalanceTutor is that it has these extending arms here where it comes out so that bow has support here. And what we're simulating here is we're simulating somebody who needs a little bit more support or a little bit lower level and maybe earlier on in the rehab process. Maybe they're coming inpatient rehab or early outpatient therapy. And you can see there's an asymmetry here in his step length. He might need a little bit more postural or trunk support. The bar coming out gives you that ability to kind of weight bear through that arm and allow yourself to support a shoulder. Let's say he has hemiparesis that affects the entirety of his right side. But now what we can do is we can also work on increasing that step length on that right that's shortened. So as that leg starts to trail, we're going to fire it. And as you start to grade the response, you can see, okay, maybe that time I didn't elicit the best response there, and maybe we want a little bit larger of a step on that right. Well, you just come over here. It's as easy as this. You increase it a little bit more, and watch this. Boom, bigger step. And now you improve the symmetry of walking, and you improve his stride length, which then improves efficiency, and it improves confidence. It improves everything. Here we go. Boom. Just like that. And now he has the support and the confidence that he needs in security, holding on to with these extensions or handrails. Perfect. And the great thing is when we're working on that single leg stance and that stability, if he needs just a little bit of stability and support, bring this down. Now your patient feels much more comfortable knowing that they have handrails here that they can use if needed. Obviously, we try to work on not holding on. That's the whole premise of this. But if you do need a little bit of a finger or two to counter that for a brief moment, that's okay. Now we've got these bars here that we can use. So go ahead back into that single leg stance. Now you can challenge it a little bit more. Here we go. Good, and you saw those toes come up. Really utilizing those dorsiflexors there and the muscles in the front of the leg there that control the inertia going back. Now we're going to go forward. Good, and that's that eccentric control of those gastrocs and that tibial translation from coming forward. We'll do that one more time. Good. And you could see how his inertia and mass went forward, but he utilized those calves to bring him back. All right, one more time. Perfect. Good. And then from the side. Good. He has to really recruit glute and recruit that quad. Good. And you can see there is use of his trunk and his hip strategy. We're going to do that one more time. Good. Dips out to the side. He compensates really well. And what you can tell him is, hey, Bo, what I want you to do is when I'm hitting you with those perturbations medial and laterally, those side-to-side perturbations, I want you to really squeeze and fire that glute, okay? So fire for me here, 3, 2, 1, fire. Good. And you could see there, the trunk excursion was not as much because I told him to kind of fire that up. So you can train that in blocked practice, and then you can take that blocked practice and then you can randomize it. And as he begins to be more autonomous in the response and the motor control, and you get better feedback. It's perfect. What's great about the BalanceTutor is that you can be as creative and utilize resources that you have. So I have a monster band or a cook band here that I placed around the waist here to improve the intensity of the task. There's a paradigm shift that's occurring in neurologic rehab and stroke recovery, spinal cord injury, brain injury, where we try and increase muscle recruitment, increase intensity, getting the heart rate up to drive trophic factors within the brain. And this is a way, some resisted walking, that you can do this safely. So I've anchored a band around his waist and around the BalanceTutor. I'm going to have him start walking. Do you feel the pull of that band there? Yeah. And now as you're walking against that resistance, what's going to happen is you're going to recruit and elicit a lot more plantar flexor response, glutes and hamstrings, and now you're going to get all of this, what we call power in the posterior chain or the whole back of the leg here. And this is the type of training specifically that we're missing in a subgroup of people within the neurologic population, which is people with Parkinson's. They don't get into a lot of power training or recruiting. What they do is they start to walk and it's slow and we don't elicit any kind of a push-off. Well, here's the push-off right here. We've got you safely in the band or in the harness with the band attached around the waist, pulling backward. And now we can add in one of the most functional components of it, which is that 4-way reactive perturbation. So I'm going to add in a perturbation here. Good. So now we're not only working on muscle activation and recruitment here and getting his heart rate up as well, but now we're also adding in a real life loss of balance, a slip or a trip, which I should probably make a little bit more aggressive there. There we go. And now he's really going to catch himself. Now we're starting to distort or disorient his sensory input. So his brain has to process, okay, something is pulling me backward. I need to come forward and shift my weight forward. Well, now he's going to recruit more muscle. He gets more cortical excitability because there's more sensory input through the cortex. And now we're walking and rolling, working on slipping, tripping, stepping over things, working on real life scenarios here. You can elicit a crossover step as well, which I'll show you here. I'm going to have him cross over with his left foot. Good. And you can time it so that you can tailor it to exactly what you need. I'm going to have him step over now. There it is. Good. But this is just one unique feature of this treadmill. Is now you can add in the perturbations. You can add in the safety and the stability. You can be wherever you need to be, hands off. And then you get a little creativity with it. And you have a band. And now you're working on power. So you're working on strength. You're working on walking, muscle recruitment, cortical excitability within the brain, getting the heart rate up. There's almost nothing that we're not working on. All right, so Bo, you told me that you want to return to hiking. We're here in Utah. I reside in Arizona. A lot of people want to return to hiking or just being able to navigate difficult terrain, whether it's rocks, gravel, grass, whatever it may be. So what I'm going to have you do is we're going to do a fun activity. I'm going to have you reactive stepping over cones. But not only that, I programmed the treadmill. The BalanceTutor is now going to give you perturbations in all different directions. And it's going to be every 5 seconds. So I have it on what's called a timed trigger mode, which is really cool because now I get to be hands off and be with you. And those perturbations are still going to come at random times. So I don't even know what they're going to be either. So I'm going to have you walking at your comfortable pace. And that's all I want you to do. You ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now as a clinician, I need to make sure that I'm out of the way. And that's where the experience of handling it comes in. All right. And we're going to work on returning to hiking, my friend. I want you to step over some different obstacles. Good. Good. So if you want to work on foot clearance and improving his ability to clear when he's during the swing phase of gait, you can put those cones on there on one side and work on that. Let's say that's that left clearance or left foot, and working on those hip flexors to be able to clear it. Or if you want random order, let's say he's an expert here and he's got that one down already, I can go crazy and really challenge him and mix up the practice. You don't want him to be able to predict, right? That's the whole point of this reactive training, is to not predict. And he's crushing it. That was great. And that simulates stepping over those difficult terrain or the different rocks. And then when you're in midair or mid-stance, you're on one foot and then you get a perturbation and you have to do a crossover step or you have to react. And that's what it's all about. Good. Perfect. All right, so we've been doing a lot of forward walking. Well, guess what? Research shows that sidestepping lateral walking and backward walking also improve time in stance phase and the quality and gait speed of forward walking. So we're going to work on all different directions on here while I time those triggers with those perturbations, okay? So the same thing as we did before. I'm going to put it on time trigger mode. You're going to have 5 seconds in between, but you're not going to know which direction it's going to come from, okay? And we might even add in a little dual task. So Bo, now what I want you to do is I want you to turn and face me. And I've got that treadmill going a little bit slower, so I want you to just sidestep for me. We're going to work on now kind of glute activation. And if you need a little assistance, you can always drop that down and have that there too. But I don't think you need that right now. I think you're doing all right. So I'm going to put that back up. Good. And now we're giving him unexpected perturbations here, working on recruiting different strategy and different sets of muscles here in terms of the direction and the sequencing and the timing of the force. But what's great is you're naturally reacting. You don't have to have any processing going on within the brain. This is all happening as a reflexive response. So what we're going to do is we have a single task, a single motor task of sidestepping. Well, now I'm going to add in a dual task with the ball. So we're going to catch a ball while you're sidestepping, so it's a dual motor task. Perfect. And this is great to use with people who are rehabbing from post-concussion, and we're talking about oculomotor and eye tracking. We can add in some head turns here in a little bit to work on vestibular integration and working on hypofunctions if one side's not getting the excitability. Good. And you can vary it up here too. Vary the different heights. Have them go up high. Work on tracking up high. Good. You can work on depth perception. Ooh, good snag, Bo. Good. There you go. And now I'm going to get you to turn and backward walk with me. Love it. I love it. Good. Oh, unexpected there. Good. And you're doing this all well knowing that he's perfectly safe in the harness. And you can make it fun. A lot of patients in the neuro population have difficulty with processing speed and timing, so I'll say, hey, Bo, I want you to name me 5 professional sports teams every time you toss the ball. Name one for me.
Buccaneers.
Good.
Spurs.
All right.
Jazz.
Good. Now name me 2 things that are lighter than a pound. We're going to test him here to see if he knows this.
Kilogram.
Ooh, good.
Ounce.
Nice. Name me something taller than a building.
A mountain.
Perfect. How about 4 different ways to get from here to there, different modes of transportation?
Driving.
Now I'm going to have him sidestep.
Walking.
Perfect.
Bike.
Uh-huh. Nice, creative, I like that. All right, good, but these are just some examples. So now we're adding in different layers to this. We're adding in the dual motor task of the sidestepping. We're adding in the ball toss and then a cognitive component. So can he process all of this information, track it with his eyes, and then can he maintain motor output? A lot of times with people with Parkinson's, there's too much interference and they can't process that. But if we can work on that in a controlled manner, then we can improve upon it. But we don't usually have a way of doing that safely. But the BalanceTutor offers us that unique ability. You just have the remote with you and you walk around, and if something happens, you just hit the e-brake and everything's okay. All right, nice job. So Bo, now what we're going to do is integrate this system called the MediTouch and integrate it with the BalanceTutor and some reactive perturbations. I'm going to put this around your head. It's going to be able to measure the angle of excursion of range of motion of your neck when you look to the side and when you look up and down. So this is going to go on you. Very easy to put on. I'm going to have you hold that right there in the center for me. Perfect, thank you. Attach it here. Make sure it's a little tight, not too tight. That's perfect. We're going to play a game called the helix jump. We're going to work on your vestibular system. I noticed that in the evaluation when we did some sensory organization testing, there was some postural sway and spatial awareness difficulties. So this is what we're going to work on. I'm going to click on the helix jump here. We're going to connect the 3D tutor device. And it connects relatively quickly. Bluetooth connection here. There it is. All right. And what's great here is the prompt on the screen is going to tell you exactly what to do, but I'll also tell you. So you're going to keep your eyes right here in the middle of the screen. And I want you to look to your right as far as you feel comfortable while eyes maintain focus in midline here. Good. And now look to your left. Good. Now come back to center and stay still for a moment. Perfect. I'm going to reset that. We're going to do that one more time. There's a big asymmetry left and right. So I stay focused right at the middle of the screen, and I want you to look to your right. Good. And now I want you to look to your left. Good. Come back to midline for a moment and stay still. Awesome. We'll work on your neck range of motion later. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the MediTouch system here and work on some head turning. So you're going to rotate that head into the opening of the helix, that level there. So rotate that to the head, just to the left a little bit. There you go. And it's going to drop a level. And then you're going to rotate to the right now, I believe. A little bit more, a little more. There you go. Good. Okay. Now I'm going to integrate the walking component to this, okay? So you're going to walk at your normal speed, and I'm going to give you some unexpected nudges or perturbations. And that, along with the head movement, is going to stimulate the vestibular system so that it can make the necessary adaptations that you wouldn't normally get otherwise, instead of just standing and working on what we call gaze stabilization, or VOR, vestibular ocular reflex training. We typically will stand and look at a target and move our head back and forth in a static position. Well, static no longer, because we're going to do it in a more functional position and elicit more cortical excitability. All right, we're going to integrate that functional walking component here. So I'm going to put it on time trigger just like we've done before. We're going to invert the belt. Okay, and we're ready. And what's great is you can walk around. I've got the remote here. So if I need to make an emergency stop or make an adjustment, I can do that via the remote. But now it's really, really challenging for him to be able to walk and turn the head and excite that vestibular system. That's good. And now we're working on the stepping reactions. And what's great is that when this platform moves side to side, you're going to get that angular acceleration and excitation of that push and pull that not only you get with the head turns, but now you're getting the excursion laterally as well. So you're getting more input and more stimulus to those otolith organs. How's this feel?
Good.
Is it challenging?
Yeah.
Good, good. We need a challenge to be able to elicit an adaptation or a response within the vestibular system to make change. And so part of that is using the brain and using the cerebellum to predict a response, elicit a response, and then correct based on that output. Excellent. That's great. Now we're going to work on motor control within the neck. So after a concussion, what I like to do is I like to put people on here. If they have difficulty with motor control where the neck is choppy with the turns, I like to work on slow graded movement to integrate those rotations naturally. And what's working on what we call the cervical ocular reflex, COR, instead of the VOR. So we're working on not only inner ear movement, but now we're getting proprioceptive input from the neck musculature while we move you around and walk on the treadmill. This one's going to be particularly challenging for you to be able to maintain control within the confines of the game. There it is, track a target. All right, we're already connected. I'll have you do the same thing. I'm going to have you look right here at that scroll, at that cursor. Keep your eyes on that target. Rotate your head to the right. Good. Without straining. Good. And then rotate your head to the left. Perfect. Okay. Keep those eyes forward. Good. And we're going to adjust the parameters here so we have a little bit longer time to do this. So you can make a ton of adjustments here. You can make the hold time where you rotate. You can rotate and hold to work on maintaining a posture as we're walking. And I'm going to add that walking feature in. Simulating if you're walking down the street and you're looking to see if a car's coming or something. It's much more functional of a task. You can also work on the path size and the speed. So you can work on the sensitivity of the component. So you can either have it be very, very slow, or a subtle movement will make it jump a lot. So the sensitivity of it can be adjusted as well. I'm going to increase the time though here for the purpose of this. Good. So now I want you to just, before we start, I want you to rotate and look right. Good. Right is now down and left is going to be up. So in terms of concussion rehab, in terms of vestibular training, this is going to challenge some complex cognitive processes for you to have to think about the rotation of it. And so rotating right is now down, the left is now up. It's going to kind of distort things for you, but also make it more challenging. So let's try this out. All right, try and keep it within that yellow the best you can. And as you can see, it's challenging. It's challenging to control the movement because the track to target, that track is moving slowly. And so when we elicit that slow head turn and that reflex, so we're going to work on that cervical spinal reflex, or that CSR reflex. There's a vestibulospinal reflex and there's a cervical spinal reflex. So that's what we're working on here. We're working on that slow head turn and the control of that neck motion. And there's been high level research that with post-MVA whiplash, post-concussion, the motor control in the cervical musculature is impaired. And so we're working on adapting that and improving that with some of these games here. And now we're going to work on adding in the functional component, that walking component to it, to make it even more realistic. Oh, and Bo, I didn't tell you we're adding in time triggers too. So now this platform is going to perturbate and cause slips, trips, and nudges as we do this. So this is going to be the ultimate challenge for you. But you can see the postural response that he has to do as well as there as well. So it's the vestibulospinal reflex. You get the cervical spinal reflex. You are working on excitation of the inner ear. You're working on oculomotor tracking and gaze stabilization. You're working on a lot of different things here. and you're working on the reflexive stepping response, the protective stepping strategy to avoid a fall. So doing this in the most functional way we know how, which is walking and performing multiple tasks. Good. And it's challenging, but he's doing a good job here. He's able to adapt and making necessary adjustments. So good. Part of our concussion rehab process is to work on pursuits and oculomotor tracking of the eyes. And so what we'll see with sensory organization testing, is that there'll be an abnormal postural response that you'll see even with the eyes open on a compliant surface, typically post-concussion. But also that inner ear system, when we have you on a compliant surface with your eyes closed, that vestibular system that senses spatial orientation and postural control is often impaired. So what we want to work on is we want to work on a few different ones, target a few different systems at the same time. Right now, I'm going to have you work on just the pursuits of the eyes. So I'm going to have you standing right here. I'm going to have you looking here at this red dot that's going to pop up here in about 3 seconds. And I'm going to have you track with your eyes only. And it's going to create what's called an optokinetic nystagmus. So you're going to track horizontally, and then it's going to bring you back. And you're going to track horizontally and bring it back. So this is good to work on for pursuits when we're talking about sport and concussion rehab. What things do we need to have in terms of what needs to happen with the eyes? Well, the eyes have to track a target. So imagine I'm a baseball player and I'm up to the plate and I'm tracking from that pitcher a 95-mile-an-hour fastball that's coming. Well, your head's not moving that much. Your head might be moving a little bit. The excursion might be 15, 20 degrees, but your eyes are going to be tracking that ball, and elite hitters can actually track and see rotation on the ball. And this is one of the ways that you can work on that, is you can work on eye tracking and pursuit type movements to work on being able to pick up on that ball and in sport performance. So football players, for example, working on catching and receiving a ball, and that ball coming at you from different angles. You have to smoothly track where that ball is coming. After a concussion, those smooth pursuits can end up with what they call saccadic intrusions or jerky eye movement. And so that football will look like it's here, and then here, and then here. Well, working on these types of activities to work on your eyes will allow for smooth transition of your eyes through that range of motion to be able to catch that football. So now I'm going to add in a functional component to this of walking and moving. And I'm also going to add in some nudges, some perturbations in all different directions. So it's going to go forward or backward or side to side. I'm going to start the belt here. Good. And I want you to continue to track that red dot for me here. And depending on symptomology or how symptomatic they are and sensitivity, you can adjust the work-rest ratio. Right now I have a 50 to 10, 50 on, he's tracking for 50 seconds and 10 seconds of rest. If he was very symptomatic with this, number one, I'd probably not have him walk just yet, just standing with perturbations. But then you can also adjust the time that he's working to allow for more recovery. You can adjust it 30-30, you can adjust it 40-20, or you can do a 50-10. So it just depends on how he's responding to this intervention and the sensitivity. If he's telling me that his headache is okay, his nausea is not bad, dizziness isn't increasing a ton, then great. We're going to work until until he can track better, he has no symptoms, and he's at a point where we can get him back into a little bit more sport-specific tasks. So, but oftentimes with individuals with Parkinson's, I talked about how the initiation of the movement is challenging when we're stopping and starting. So what happens is when we stop in place, we end up freezing and we can't initiate that first step. So what we're going to work on here is a unique feature with a trip and a slip motion of the perturbation of the treadmill belt, but then I'm also going to speed up and slow down the belt. So there's going to be some variability of the speeds. So I'm going to have you walking at your comfortable pace to begin. Perfect. As we get going here. All right, now we're gonna walk as fast as you can. Here we go. We're gonna speed that treadmill up. We're gonna force the pace. We're gonna get the intensity up. He's moving. He's moving. Now go. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slow the treadmill down in a moment, and I want you to sustain the amplitude of your movement. So I'm gonna drop that speed way down. He's gonna be at about a half a mile an hour now. And what happens is we have to avoid this festination that occurs, and we have to overcome that. And if we can cue him and say, all right, continue to take large steps as we vary the speed, good. And now I'm gonna add in a perturbation. On top of that, I'm gonna start to integrate those as we're doing speed variability training here. All right, and I'm not gonna tell you now because I want it to be a reactive base, now that we've gotten the hang of it, of when things are coming. And there, right there, you could see if you had difficulty initiating a step with one side, because Parkinson's affects one side of the body typically in the beginning. Let's say it's his right side, I can really hit him with a big forward perturbation, front to back I should say, when his right foot gets trailing. So right now, boom, huge right step right there. I don't know if you saw that, I'm gonna do that again. Right's gonna trail, and boom. And the amplitude of his step got larger. So now we're gonna continue to work on that, and I'm gonna slow down the treadmill. Good, oh, you saw that right there. As we slowed it down, you could see there. Good. So watch, right now. Boom. He has to take a huge step with his right foot. And again, so if you have difficulty, especially with slower walking, you can initiate a perturbation and elicit that reflexive response and drive that hip forward and that leg forward and advance that leg to avoid those festination bouts. Another unique feature that we can utilize about the BalanceTutor is we can utilize those perturbations to our advantage. So in stroke rehabilitation, often there's an asymmetry of step length, and oftentimes we'll use an ankle weight as an error augmentation technique to utilize. So for example here, let's say that Bo's right leg is the weaker limb, and we've noticed that his right step is not as big. Well, we can augment that error and make it harder, increasing muscle recruitment to drive neuroplastic changes. And now I'm going to have you walk. And let's say because he had difficulty progressing and advancing the limb, that's what we're focused on right now. You can utilize these handbars here, and you can have him hold on in weight bearing. I told you his right leg was weak, but oftentimes you have one-sided weakness that will work on the shoulder and the support and stability here. So now we're getting forearm and grip strength, shoulder strength, humeral head and shoulder approximation to keep within that socket so it doesn't sublux. And now we're going to really drive more recruitment through those hip flexors, and as we push off those plantar flexors to elicit a better step in swing phase. So now we're going to walk. And what's going to happen is it's going to be really hard. Do you feel like it's harder now to move your leg forward? Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the weight is providing and augmenting that error. And if you provide enough weight and he's creating more error, so for example, you'll start to see a drag. Well, guess what? With that drag, you can add in a forward response, and you're going to see a huge step out of that, and you're going to get a lot of hip flexor recruitment. There you go. And now we're advancing the leg. And what's great with this sensory weighting technique of this is, watch what we do if we train this, even in just a short amount of time, blocked practice. Now we're going to take that ankle weight away. This is a do not try at home. This is, I've done this many times. And now you're going to get what's called a rebound effect, where he's recruiting a lot more. And do you feel like your leg is just really flying through now?
Yes.
Yeah, and your step length is going to be higher. It's going to be increased. The symmetry is going to be better. The efficiency of your walking is going to be better. And that's going to be the way that a strategy you can use to improve advancement of that leg. What's great about the BalanceTutor is that you can utilize it in so many different ways. Here we're going to work on static positioning with Bo here, taking the golf club. He's working on, he noticed when we did an evaluation that as he came back, he was a little unstable and off balance during his golf swing. And what you can do is you can work on, okay, Bo, what I want you to do is I want you to take that golf club back, come up to the top of your swing, and I promise we won't judge the swing. Good. Now hold it right there. And now I'm going to give you some perturbations in all different directions to work on core stability, glute activation, and staying in your form while you're on an unstable surface. So now when you're at the top of the swing here and you're in posture right there, we're going to work on turning on the obliques. We're going to work on glute recruitment. He's going to be able to sustain this, and we're going to work on that reactive component to recruit muscle activation using those fast twitch fibers so that when he's at the top of his swing, he's not going to lose balance. And if he does, he's trained it enough to where it's not going to affect his downswing. Good. Good. And that nudge right there just activated that right glute more. He's loaded up there. We're going to load up again. Good. Good. And if you want to help with the transition on that downswing and that weight shift going from that back leg that's loaded and rotated to now that front leg when you come down, well, watch this. Did you see that transition of weight right there? That's exactly what you can do there. And you can grade those perturbations according to what you're seeing and utilizing the objectivity of the numbers on here and saying, okay, I want a little bit more of a weight shift. All right, well, he's at an 11 right now. Let's go up to 12 or 13. There we go. Now he's really transitioning on the downswing, sliding those hips forward and starting to come down. Good. So, Bo, what I'm going to have you do now is I'm going to have you go into a single leg stance for me. And this is what I use with a lot of higher level athletes or post-concussion, those who have MS. I just used this on a gal the other day in the clinic, but we're working on ankle and knee stability here. So I'm going to hit Bo here, not physically, but I'm going to give him a little perturbation. And do you see the response out of that gastroc and then out of that anterior tib here? Watch that again here. As we go here, you can see his heel come up subtly and then his toes come back as a secondary countermeasure. So we can go side to side. I have to watch myself here. Good. And as soon as you go to that side, what happens is the inertia and the mass goes this way. Well, what does he have to do? He has to recruit his glute and his hip abductor here, and he has to really squeeze hard to stay stable over that side. So watch that again. Ooh. And you can see right there, the hip drop just like that, and you have to squeeze and pull it up underneath. Okay, so Bo, I want you to stay standing just like you are here, and I'm going to give you some nudges here back and forth. Good, right there. And you can see that heel come up a little bit, that gastroc turn on. Watch it again. Good, and those toes start to come up. And you're utilizing extensors, you're utilizing anterior tib here and those dorsiflexors, and that's the response that you want to get out of that. Your post-concussion athletes that are returning to sport, they need these type of quick reflexive responses. And then when we talk about the knee and the hip, that component coming into it, watch this here from the side. Good. That hip starts to drop. Watch it. Good. And you have to recruit here, glute, the hip abductor or glute medius here, and glute maximus have to fire. And then that quad kicks in too. Watch this. Good. That knee dips in. One more time. I'm really testing his balance here. Good. And that's a way that you can recruit those muscles and that pattern quicker to facilitate a stronger response and facilitate more stability standing on that leg, which will help when you're running, when you're jumping, when you're cutting, and doing all of those things that you need in that single leg and that plyometric work when you're returning to sport. Good. Go ahead and put your leg down. Perfect.